Hey, I'm Lisa Carlson. I'm the campus dietitian at Northwestern, and I'm with NU Dining, and we have a great collaboration with the Henry Crown Sports Pavilion. And what I'm going to do today is present on eating healthy on a budget. And this seems to be a really appropriate topic because, we're kind of still in the middle of a pandemic. A lot of us are trying to eat healthy and who doesn't want to be on a budget, or nobody wants to be on a budget, but we probably all want to be a little bit more budget conscious. One of the questions I often get is, how can you eat healthy on a budget? Isn't eating healthy mean you're going to be spending more? Well, that's the first myth I'm going to bust. And I would say that budget friendly meals are really often healthy meals. Now, they don't always have to be, or they not always, and if you are not, planning a little bit and shopping appropriately. But we're going to talk a little bit about how they can be. And I want to start with just talking a little bit about what is healthy. And these are some plates that are versions of the USDA's My Plate. And the one on the left is a healthy plate with animal proteins. And as you can see, it's half of the plate are these very colorful veggies and fruit. And then a quarter of the plate is healthy proteins. And you can also probably see that there are a little bit of animal protein, salmon and chicken and things like that, and also some plant proteins. And then a quarter of the plate is whole grains. So that's kind of a healthy plate using animal proteins. The other one is plant forward. And you can see it's very similar, except there are plants instead of the animal proteins, but nuts and seeds and legumes and lentils and tofu and the like, and a little bit of healthy oil as well. So if we start off with that as a healthy plate, let's talk about how you incorporate budget friendly meals in with that. And what I like to say is that budget friendly meals are meals and healthy that have these different criteria. They're typically planned meals, and planned meals are going to go into that a little bit more, but they're ones that you're making some decisions on what you're going to have, not just impromptu. They may use coupons and things like that. I don't think you have to use coupons. I think if you use the store guidance, meaning comparing unit price, or even using the circulars, which are the in-store little guide that says what kind of fruits and vegetables and things like that are on sale, that's always good. Shopping with a list is critical. They also tend to be foods that are and meals that are prepped at home, because we know when you go out to, I mean, not many of us are going out to restaurants. When you're taking out, that's going to be more expensive. When they contain plant proteins versus animal proteins, they're going to be less. Shopping the store perimeter, that's a common thing we talk about. That is usually where the fresh foods are. They tend to be healthier. And if you shop smart with that, they tend to be budget friendly. If you've got lots of fruits and vegetables on your plate, that's also going to be healthier. And then a really important one, especially when you compare it with takeout and restaurant, if you do right sized portions, and the focus being on meals versus snacks. I'm a big proponent, if you can get as much as possible, 3 meals a day or 2 meals a day with a healthy snack here and there, probably a good way to look at it. So here's 3 steps to healthy meal planning. We're going to talk a little bit about planning your plate and meals for the week. They really should appeal to all senses. Have them colorful, have different textures. Maybe some are hot and some are cold. Maybe some are hot and spicy and some are more mild. You want to choose recipes that, of course, fit your budget and fit, your health needs and needs of your family, if you're a family, or as a student cooking in an apartment, just your needs. What kind of taste do you like? Shopping smart, as we mentioned, we're going to talk a lot about making sure you have a list. That is so critical. I mean, even though you think in your mind, okay, I'm just going to get the staples, there's always a couple things that you might have run out of that you should put on that list. And you should always do an inventory. Check your refrigerator, check your freezer, check your pantry, see what you're getting low on, what you want to stock up on. And then the final one is master the art of, which is really an art and a science of meal prep. Get ready to cook, make sure you have all your tools ready, your ingredients, and consider the packaging so you can freeze or refrigerate your leftovers. So the first one is planning your plate. And this diagram is really a version of the ones that I just showed you. And then this little illustration is what we're going to see more of. If you can consider making half your plate vegetables, half your plate produce, it's a really good way to start. We're starting to become less animal protein centric, more protein forward. And if you do that, you're going to save money. Look at some of your favorite recipes. Look at some new recipes. See if you can make them just a little healthier. One way to make them healthier is just adding a little bit more vegetables, scaling down on maybe the starchy carbs, making them more right-sized portions. This is a little bit of a graphic on how to think about portions. And usually, as dietitians, we often think of take your hand. You know, a tablespoon of peanut butter is about the thumb, and the serving size of your meat might be your palm. And as you know, like a smaller person has a smaller size palm. That's why they would eat less. Think of just a handful, small handful of nuts. Those are good ways to kind of keep portions in check. Then when you start to think about shopping and you've already done your food inventory, you've made a list, you know what stores are out there. I mean, smart shoppers usually shop a couple of stores. I mean, right now in the time of COVID, you want to get in and out. But if you do know your stores, you might want to go to a Jewel or an Aldi's or a Tony's or Whole Foods, if those are the shopping places you go. But you might also want to consider a dollar store. Of course, never shop hungry. That is like a really important rule. At least get a little snack before you go out. Shopping the perimeter, we talked about that. But also, you want to, when you shop the aisles, a smart way is to park and shop. Park your cart and then go down the aisle because the aisles are typically more processed foods, which you might want to pick and choose which ones you want to shop. They tend to be a little bit more expensive than some of the ones that are on the aisles. And use unit pricing. Unit pricing is great for fresh produce, for um, for any kind of processed foods, for milk, for dairy. It's really important. And also your store circulars, even more so than coupons, because with the store circulars, you're going to get the prices of what's on sale for the fresh products, the fresh produce, the meats. And then the final step is really mastering the art and science of meal prep. Um, you can plan for a couple of weeks. I like to think of it as 1 week. Um, Plan to eat at home is really a good idea, and maybe plan to take out once a week. You might want to start even by taking a look at what your budget is. And if you are eating out a lot, maybe you can scale back one or two times and do more meal prepping. Some ideas are getting family packs of different things and then cutting them up when you get home. Even if you get a whole head of cauliflower or a couple of onions, if you chop them up and put them in little containers, that's a great way because when you come home starving, you can use those for a variety of meals and stir fries and salads. It's important to think outside the plate. A lot of times we use the plate as a good graphic, but certainly you can use a bowl, you can do stir fry, you can use noodle bowls or tofu and couscous. You can stuff a pepper. You can pretty much stuff any kind of vegetable that is a container-like vegetable. Also think about mixing it up for breakfast. Making breakfast dinner is always good. Making breakfast burritos. Doing overnight oats is a great thing. And if you're kind of doing some on the run things, that's a great thing that can be packed and carried. And also this kind of salad jar, where you make it as a shaker and then you pour it out into a plate. Make your mezza plate as making a meal out of an appetizer. Here's another bunch of pictures, but it really shows that you can make a stir fry, you can do a one pan dish. All of these have in some ways replaced what we used to eat maybe 20, 25 years ago, which were casseroles, where they combine a vegetable and a starch and maybe some kind of protein, but it could be a plant protein. If you go heavier on the vegetables, that's going to be um, actually both budget friendly as well as healthy. Make a head salad. Lots of times people don't think of making a head salad, but you can. You can make it in the morning. You can even make it the night before, and it's completely fresh. Just put, a lid on it. This one is kind of a sustainable lid. You can just put a plate on it. This one on the right is something I took from, I think it was from Crate and Barrel, because they're talking about one sheet, one pan dishes, and this one in the middle, which is kind of hard to see, is actually salmon that feeds. I would say this doesn't feed four; it probably feeds more like eight, and some of the that you can freeze, making green beans on different pans. Here's a couple of other ideas. Grow some of your food. Have a little garden inside of herbs or grow them in your backyard if you have something or on a windowsill. Make your own takeout favorites. This is one of my favorites. When I go out, or when I used to go out, or when I take out and I really find something I like, I take a picture of it and I really try to make it at home. Of course, it's not always going to be perfect, but if I kind of have an idea of the ingredients, I do pretty well. Make your own sauces, dressings, chopped salads, hummus. If you do these kinds of things, they tend to last longer. You can freeze them. Um, they tend to be a little bit more precious because you've made them and they taste great. Microwave popcorn is one of my favorites. You don't have to buy microwave popcorn. You can buy regular popcorn, put a couple tablespoons in a brown paper bag on high in the microwave for about 2 minutes, and you can make your own microwave popcorn. Here's some great tools and resources, and we've got these available to you. They come from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and that's where I got the microwave popcorn tip. It's something I make all the time. Also, if you're a student or on campus or go to the Henry Crown Sports Pavilion, take advantage of some of these. We've got blogs. We have a Wildcat food guide that gives you a bunch of different ideas. If you're a student, whether you're off campus or on campus, you can take advantage of the Purple Pantry. If you are just struggling to make ends meet, you can schedule a confidential Purple Pantry appointment by the Purple Pantry um, appointment uh, email. And then just to summarize, I use a version of My Plate as a guide to plan your menus, plan your shopping and cooking. We know if you eat at home as much as you can, you're going to save money and you're also going to eat healthier. Think about eating meals versus just continuous snacks, more veggies, fewer animals. That's good for humans, our planet, and of course, it's good for animals. And most importantly, to enjoy the journey. That's really great. And now we're going to open it up for questions.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for the great presentation. So I had a couple follow-up questions about the presentation today. So this first one's a little bit personal. So how would you personally prioritize money? Let's just say you had, 35, $45 a week. What would be some of your top items that you would choose to eat healthy on
Oh,
a budget?
yeah, that's a wonderful question, Amy. You always ask great questions, and I would say first it has to start with what someone likes to eat, because you always have to start with their likes, dislikes. What I would do is I would be really smart about figuring out your vegetables and your protein. And you could do if you eat animal protein, you could do things like rotisserie chicken, chicken in a family pack, and then cut it all up. Good cuts of chicken don't always have to be the skinless, boneless chicken breast. You could do thighs. So lots of great recipes for that. Things that you can do in kind of one pot cooking might even be cans of beans. You can buy them dried, but also if you buy cans, you can rinse them several times, get the sodium out. That's a good idea. I would also look at your veggies, what you like to eat, and then look in the store and figure out what's on sale that week. Because we think that vegetables are expensive, but if they're in season, they can be a good price. And also, I would say load up on a couple of your favorites of frozen vegetables. Always great to have um, a good amount of frozen vegetables on hand, and that's always that's my backup always.
Fantastic. The next one is more your personal preference as well. So I think going into any grocery store nowadays, you see a lot of different labels, and it's kind of hard to decide what labels hold weight and what don't. So we think about things like organic, free range, low sodium, low cholesterol, no cholesterol. And we know that not all of these have the backing behind them, but what are some that do really mean something and something that we should be aware of if we can be aware of it?
Yeah, and another good question. I would say those kind of labels. Um, maybe organic and all might be a little bit separate. But those descriptive labels, I think we call it, some of them are regulated by our government, some of them are a little bit less regulated and more descriptive. I would say rather than using those, is selecting as much as you can whole whole products. So whether it's frozen vegetables or regular vegetables or whole fruit, and certainly canned or frozen fruit, and then looking at if you are buying things that are more, I guess, minimally processed, I would tend to look more at the label, the nutrition label, and scan it. Not so much for calories only, but just scan for, gee, does it have too much sodium? Maybe that's not what I want. Or is it high in a certain nutrient, such as protein or vitamin C that I am looking for? I think I would focus more on that and do some comparison shopping. Like for instance, organic, and you can go and look at the dirty dozen, and maybe it's more than a dozen that you like to choose more organic, and that might be a good way to look. And do some price shopping, comparison shopping.
Fantastic. So I know you mentioned potentially shopping around at different stores. Do you have a list of stores in the Evanston area that you prefer specific things from, such as I like to get my produce from X store, I like to get my meat from a different store?
Yeah, I think that again is a great question. I've talked to a lot of students and others that I find their the perimeter of Evanston goes farther. And so it's hard for me to talk to, is it Food for Less or Target or Whole Foods, Aldi's. I know if you go to Aldi's, you have to drive to it. Trader Joe's is a favorite. And of course, Mariano's maybe a little bit farther out. Tony's is farther. Um, I would say versus naming a specific food or a specific grocery store, although my favorite tends to be Aldi's, and I know you got to get in the car and you got to kind of know the the system. I would say you have to have a quarter to get the cart and all that kind of stuff. But I would say whatever supermarket that you typically shop at, get to know it. Like really get to know it, get to know the ins and outs. And I'll give you, for instance, at one of the supermarkets I shop at, if it says 5 avocados for $1, what they really mean is one. I mean, this might be an outlandish example, but what they mean is one is really 20 cents. At another store, you got to get five to get that dollar, or one is going to be 50. So I would say get to know your stores. Um, there are some, like even the dollar store, where you can fill in with different things, not for everything, and get to know what stores you think you could buy generics at, the store brands.
Fantastic. The next two questions I have are more on the meal preparing side. So, I know a lot of people fall into this trap. They do a really nice job cooking all the meals, packaging up them up, beautifully, putting them in the fridge. But do you have any suggestions for actually eating all of the meals? And not making meals for every night of the week and then ending up eating out, and then you're stuck with leftovers at the end of the week of prepared meals.
Oh yeah, that is a great one because what we are just talking about is, I would say, is in the best possible world. We know things aren't perfect, but this is like when things are perfect, when you have time to prepare all these things, when you're going to be stuck at home. Well, we're all stuck at home. That one probably does feature in. I would say, really, when you do an inventory, you take inventory of yourself. What is really realistic? And it's nice to think about prepping for a whole week of foods, but what is really realistic? If you've got a class, or you're taking or you're not a student, and you know that a certain night is going to be a little bit busier for you, that might be the day that you're doing takeout pizza, or something like that. Plan that in, and don't overdo. And I think the other thing that sometimes happens is we get into this idea of bulk food, Costco, oversized portions of food, and then start feeling guilty, like if something gets lost in the back of the refrigerator and then it ends up in the trash. You don't want that. That's not budget friendly or healthy because it doesn't go in your body. So I think that the most important thing is being honest with yourself, and doing little by little. It's kind of like sticking a toe in the water of this whole healthy cooking, meal planning, budgeting stuff. It will be a habit at some point, but start slowly. Slowly is the best way for it to be sustainable.
Fantastic. And then the final question, still on the meal prepping side, do you have any like rules of thumb or resources for how long things will keep for? So, like if I grill a bunch of chicken on Sunday, when should I have that eaten by? Or can I throw it in the freezer and it still last?
And we didn't really have time to go through this, but that is really important, and it goes along with nobody wants to throw food out, um, and food safety is got to be number one. Usually, the rule of thumb is a couple of days for leftovers, and food safety guides say about 2 to 3 days. They're saying that because they know that the average person, which I don't even know who the average person is, but the average person is probably going to abuse their food a little bit. They're going to take the takeouts out, or their leftovers, and it's going to sit for a couple hours. So given that, about 2 to 3 days with leftovers. With frozen foods, and when you cook things, you can add a couple days. Certainly with frozen, depending on what it is, it could stay in the freezer for a month, and some things could stay a lot longer. They'll be perfectly safe in the freezer when you pull it out. It's just that if you're keeping something in there for like a year or two, you're going to maybe have freezer burn, not quite the quality. The one thing good about some of the resources we're offering up, they have some great food safety guidelines in them. And so I encourage people who are really interested to go through that, because they have like, can you freeze a cheese dish versus chicken versus a combo dish, and they give different timing for that.
Awesome. So that was all I had. So thank you, Lisa, for taking the time today to walk us through healthy eating on a budget, or budgeting, meal prepping a little bit as well. So I just wanted to mention that for everybody watching, the resources that Lisa mentioned will be down below in our description bar. And to feel free to reach out to Lisa or Northwestern Recreation with any follow up questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you.